Hey everyone, welcome back. Before we dive in tonight, if you're new here, this is Boring History for Sleep. We take the parts of history your textbook skipped and tell them slowly, calmly, and with just enough detail to help you drift off. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you enjoy falling asleep to stories about ancient suffering. No judgment here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I love seeing who's joining us from around the world. Maybe you're in New York at midnight, or London at 5 in the morning, or Tokyo at lunchtime. Wherever you are, you're welcome here. Now, get comfortable. Dim those lights. Maybe turn on a fan for some white noise. Adjust your pillow. Get that blanket just right. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Tonight, we're going to ancient Egypt. But forget everything Hollywood taught you. Forget the gold, the glory, and Cleopatra's dramatic eyeliner. Forget the mysterious mummies and the curse-filled tombs. We're not talking about pharaohs tonight. We're not talking about priests or nobles or anyone whose name ended up carved in stone. We're talking about the other 99% of Egypt. The workers, the builders, the farmers, the invisible millions who actually made Egypt. Well, Egypt? And here's the thing. You wouldn't last a single day as one of them. Not because you're weak. Not because you're lazy. But because their normal was our nightmare. Because what they considered a regular Tuesday would absolutely destroy most modern humans before lunch. When you think of ancient Egypt, you probably picture something like this. Gleaming pyramids rising from golden sand. Their limestone faces catching the sun. Pharaohs in elaborate headdresses and striped nemes. Looking mysterious and powerful. Hieroglyphics covering temple walls. Telling stories and pictures we can barely translate. Treasure-filled tombs packed with gold, jewels, and artifacts that belong in museums. Maybe some mummies wrapped in linen. Resting peacefully in decorated sarcophagi. Waiting for eternity. Hollywood gave us The Mummy, The 10 Commandments, Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor. All spectacle, all drama, all focused on the 1% at the top of the pyramid. Literally and figuratively. But here's what they didn't show you. The smell. Oh God. The smell. Picture a combination of human sweat that's been marinating in linen for weeks. Donkey dung baking in the sun. Rotting fish from yesterday's catch. And stagnant Nile water that's been sitting in clay jars for 3 days because the communal well is a 20-minute walk and your back already hurts from hauling stones yesterday. They didn't show you the fleas. Everyone has fleas. The pharaoh has fleas. The high priest has fleas. You definitely have fleas. They're everywhere. Like taxes and death. Except more itchy and way more democratic about who they bite. They didn't show you the work. Real work. The kind that breaks your spine by age 30 and turns your hands into leather by age 20. The kind where you wake up before the sun rises over the eastern cliffs. Eat the same grain paste you ate yesterday. And then spend 12 hours doing exactly what your father did. And his father before him. And his father's father before that. Going back 50 generations. Because here's something they definitely don't mention in the movies. In ancient Egypt, if you were born a worker, you died a worker. There was no ladder to climb, no Egyptian dream, no pulling yourself up by your sandal straps. Assuming you even had sandals, which statistically, you probably didn't. Your father was a stone hauler. Congratulations. You're a stone hauler. His father was a stone hauler. Your son will be a stone hauler. Your grandson will be a stone hauler. Your great-great-great-grandson will be hauling the same stones in the same valley for the same government that doesn't know his name. Let's talk about the structure. The invisible pyramid that organized every single person in ancient Egypt. At the very top, the absolute peak, sits one man. Pharaoh, living God on earth. Literally worshipped. His morning routine involved priests purifying him with sacred water, servants dressing him in fine linen, and enough gold jewelry to fund a small modern country, which, to be fair, he basically owned. Just below Pharaoh, you've got the viziers, high priests, and nobles. Maybe a few hundred people total out of a population of millions. These are the people who wore linen so fine you could see through it. They ate meat regularly, not just during festivals. They had servants to do literally everything, including wiping their fight. Well, you get the idea. Below them, there's the educated class. Scribes and officials, maybe a few thousand people in total. They could read and write hieroglyphics, which in ancient Egypt was like having a master's degree in a world where 95% of people couldn't spell their own name. These were the accountants, the bureaucrats, the record keepers. Not powerful, exactly, but comfortable. Their hands didn't bleed. Their backs didn't break. They sat in the shade with papyrus and ink while everyone else sweated. Below the scribes, you've got skilled craftsmen, stonemasons, carpenters, jewelers, painters, sculptors, tens of thousands of people. These guys were valuable. They had real skills that took years to learn. They built the temples and carved the tombs. They created the beautiful things that ended up in museums 3,200 years later. But valuable doesn't mean comfortable. It just means they didn't die quite as young. Their work still destroyed their bodies. They still lived in mud brick houses. They still ate mostly bread and onions. And then, at the very bottom, the foundation of the entire structure. You've got the farmers and laborers, millions of them. The vast majority of Egypt's population, the ones who grew the food, hauled the stones, dug the ditches, carried the water, and did every single backbreaking task that civilization required. These are the people who made everything possible. Every temple, every pyramid, every palace, every piece of jewelry, every painted tomb. All of it built on the backs of people whose names were never recorded. You know those massive pyramids at Giza, built by workers? Those stunning temples at Karnak, workers? That elaborate gold death mask of Tutankhamun, workers mined the gold. Workers smelted it. Workers shaped it into something beautiful for a teenager. King who died at 1904. Now, here's something important. This wasn't slavery. Not exactly. Most Egyptian workers were technically free citizens. They got paid, sort of, in rations of grain and beer. They had some legal rights. They could theoretically own property. But they also couldn't leave, couldn't change professions, couldn't rise above their birth station. Born a farmer, you die a farmer. Born to haul stones, you'll be hauling stones until your spine gives out or a block crushes your foot. Whichever comes first. It's not slavery, but it's not freedom either. It's something in between. Something we don't really have a word for in English. Bound by necessity. Locked by birth. Trapped by a social structure so rigid it lasted 3,000 years. And guess what tonight? You're not a pharaoh. You're not a vizier. You're not even a scribe sitting comfortably in the shade. You're one of the millions at the bottom. A worker in the world's most organized most hierarchical, most stay in your lane forever society in human history. Welcome to ancient Egypt. The real one. The one they don't show you in the movies. So let's set the scene. The year is 1250 BCE. That's over 3,200 years ago. To put that in perspective, Jesus won't be born for another 1250 years. The Roman Empire doesn't exist yet. The ancient Greeks are just getting started. America won't be discovered by Europeans for another 2700 years. The internet is 32 centuries away. You're in Deir el-Medina, a worker village on the west bank of the Nile, near what we now call the Valley of the Kings. This isn't some random village. This is where the people who built the royal tombs lived. The artisans and laborers who carved, painted, and constructed the final resting places for pharaohs. But don't let the word artisan fool you. These aren't respected artists with patrons and studios. They're workers with quotas. Government employees assigned to chip stone until their hands bleed. The village sits in a narrow valley between harsh limestone cliffs. There are no trees, no grass, no greenery at all, except what you can see in the distance toward the Nile. Just rock, sand, and about 70 mud brick houses crammed together like an ancient subdivision where everyone knows everyone's business because the walls are 6 inches thick and sound travels through mud like it's trying to escape. Around you, the geography shapes everything. To the east, the Nile, the lifeline of everything. Without it, Egypt is just desert. With it, Egypt is the breadbasket of the ancient world, which means you're going to be growing a lot of wheat, or hauling stones, or both, depending on the season. To the west, the desert, endless, brutal, and full of tombs being carved into cliffsides by people just like you. The Valley of the Kings isn't a tourist attraction yet. It's not a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a construction zone, a workplace, your workplace. The sun here is merciless. We're talking temperatures that regularly hit 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. There's no air conditioning. Obviously, there's no shade unless you're rich enough to have a house with a second floor, which you are absolutely not. There are no cold drinks, no ice, no frozen anything. Just hot, dry, relentless heat that bakes the moisture out of your body and turns your skin to leather by age 25. Your village has about 300 to 400 people total. Everyone works for the Pharaoh's Tomb Project, directly or indirectly. The men carve and haul. The women grind grain, weave cloth, and keep households running. The children help as soon as they're old enough to carry water or chase birds away from the grain. It's a company town, ancient Egyptian style. The government provides your rations. The government assigns your work. The government owns your house. The government controls literally everything about your life, except your thoughts. And even those are expected to be appropriately respectful toward Pharaoh and the gods. There's a wall around the village, not to keep enemies out, to keep workers in. Well, not literally locked in, but the wall marks the boundary. This is your world. These 70 houses, these narrow streets, this collection of people you'll know your entire life because you're never leaving. And tomorrow morning, in just a few hours, you're going to wake up in this village, in a mud brick house you share with your entire family and possibly some chickens. And you're going to start a day that would absolutely destroy most modern humans within the first hour. Before you go to sleep, which is ironic since we're about to talk about waking up, let me set the scene for tomorrow morning. You don't have an alarm clock. You don't have a phone that buzzes on your nightstand. You have a rooster. Possibly several roosters competing to see who can shatter your dreams earliest and most aggressively. There's also a donkey braying somewhere in the village. A sound like a rusty gate being murdered. There's a baby crying in the house next door. Thin mud walls doing absolutely nothing to muffle the sound. And there's the voice of your neighbor's wife, yelling at him about something involving a broken water jar and whose fault it is. An argument that's been going on for 3 days now. Your bed isn't a bed. Not as you know it. It's a woven reed mat on a raised mud brick platform. There's no mattress, no box spring, no memory foam, no pillow, unless you count the wooden headrest, which is a curved piece of wood that's somehow worse than having no pillow at all. It's supposed to keep bugs out of your hair while you sleep. It doesn't work. You share this sleeping space with your spouse. Your 3 children, ranging from age 2 to age 10. And occasionally a goat that wandered in during the night, because apparently doors are optional in your one-room house. The good news, the sun hasn't risen yet. So it's only about 85 degrees instead of 105. The bad news, you're about to start a day of physical labor that would make a modern CrossFit coach weep and possibly call OSHA. So let's wake up. Let's see what morning looks like when you're at the bottom of the pyramid. Literally and figuratively. Let's experience a day in ancient Egypt. Not the Egypt of movies and museums. The Egypt of dust, sweat, and stones that never stop needing to be moved. Sweet dreams. See you in the morning. You wake up and immediately regret it. The rooster has been screaming for 10 minutes. The baby next door has been crying for 15. And your back feels like you slept on a pile of bricks. Which isn't far from the truth, since your bed is basically a woven reed mat on top of a slightly cushioned mud brick platform. Your eyes open to darkness. It's pre-dawn. The sun hasn't crested the eastern cliffs yet. But you're awake because everyone's awake. In ancient Egypt, sleeping in isn't a thing. It's not even a concept. You rise with the sun because once the sun is fully up, it's too hot to do anything except try not to die of heat stroke. You try to sit up. Your joints sound like someone crushing gravel underfoot. You're 28 years old, which in ancient Egyptian terms makes you middle-aged. Your spine cracks like old wood. Your knees protest with sharp pains that shoot up your thighs. Your shoulders, which spent yesterday hauling limestone blocks up a wooden ramp, feel like they're being held together with papyrus and prayers. Around you in the darkness, your family is stirring. Your wife is already up. You can hear her moving around, rekindling the cooking fire from last night's embers. Your 3 kids are sprawled on their reed mats, still asleep for another precious 10 minutes before their day begins. The goat that somehow got inside during the night is chewing on something that was probably important. The air is thick and stale. It smells like smoke from the fire, stale grain from yesterday's porridge, and humanity. Just humanity. There's no ventilation in your one-room house. No windows to open. Just a single doorway covered by a reed mat for what passes as privacy. The smoke from the cooking fire has nowhere to go except up through gaps in the thatched roof or directly into your lungs. You breathe in, your lungs rebel. You cough. This is normal. Everyone has a morning cough. Everyone. It's from the smoke, the limestone dust you breathe at work, the general filth of living in a mud brick house in the middle of the desert with 8 other people and various livestock. Your throat is dry. Your mouth tastes like you've been chewing on sand, which you might have been because sand gets into everything here. Your eyes are crusty. Your hair feels like straw because it is essentially straw at this point. Unbrushed and unwashed for weeks. Welcome to your morning. You've been awake for 30 seconds and you already want to go back to sleep. But you can't, because nature is calling. And in ancient Egypt, nature isn't calling politely. Nature is screaming. You drag yourself off your reed mat. Every movement hurts. Your feet hit the dirt floor and you wince because your soles are cracked and hard, but still somehow tender. You stumble toward the doorway, pushing aside the reed mat covering, and step outside into the pre-dawn darkness. It's still dark, but you can see the faint purple line of dawn on the horizon. The morning star is bright overhead. You have maybe 20 minutes before the sun turns the village into an oven. Your bathroom is behind the house. And by bathroom, I mean a designated spot in the sand where everyone in your family goes. There's no toilet, no outhouse, no hole in the ground. Just sand. You do your business. You cover it with more sand. And you hope the village dogs don't dig it up later. Spoiler alert. They absolutely will. There's no toilet paper because papyrus is expensive and used for important things like government documents and religious texts. Not for wiping your backside. So what do you use? Sand. Yes. Sand. You scoop up a handful of sand and you make do. Or you use a smooth stone if you're feeling fancy. Or you use nothing at all. Which might explain why handshakes weren't really a cultural practice in ancient Egypt. You finish. You stand. You don't wash your hands because there's no running water out here, and you need to save your daily water ration for drinking. You'll rinse your hands later. Maybe, if you remember, the village has a communal waste area at the far edge of town. It's basically a large pit where everyone throws their household waste. Human waste. Food scraps. Broken pottery. Dead animals that didn't make it through the night. Bones from meals. Anything you don't want in your house anymore. It's a garbage dump. Latrine. And biohazard zone, all in one convenient location. The smell hits you from 50 feet away. It's biblical. It's the kind of smell that makes you understand why incense was so important in religious ceremonies. Not just for honoring the gods. For survival. For making the air breathable when you live this close to concentrated human waste. And here's the kicker. This village is actually pretty well organized compared to others. The government provides a waste removal system. Sort of. Once a week? Maybe twice if you're lucky. Workers come with baskets and shovels and haul the worst of it away to bury in the desert. But in other Egyptian towns, in the big cities like Memphis or Thebes, people just throw their waste into the street. And by people, I mean everyone. Rich, poor, doesn't matter. You're walking down a street and you keep your eyes up and your mouth closed because chamber pots are being emptied from second-story windows with only a quick shout of, "Heads up if you're lucky." You turn and head back inside. Your wife hands you a cup. It's beer. Yes, beer. For breakfast. At dawn. Before you've even fully woken up. But this makes sense. The Nile water is full of parasites and bacteria. Drinking it straight will give you dysentery or worse. The beer brewing process involves boiling the water, which kills most of the bad stuff. So everyone drinks beer. Children drink beer. Pregnant women drink beer. Old people drink beer. It's low alcohol. Maybe 2 or 3%. High in calories and nutrients. And it's the only reason the entire civilization doesn't collapse from waterborne illness. You gulp your morning beer. It's thick, murky, and lukewarm. It tastes like liquid bread, which is essentially what it is. But it's wet and your throat is dry. So down it goes. Now it's time for breakfast. And breakfast in ancient Egypt is simple. Not simple chic, like a deconstructed avocado toast at a hipster cafe. Simple like this is all there is, and you'll eat it or you'll starve. You sit on the dirt floor. There are no chairs. Chairs are for rich people. You get the ground, and you're grateful for it, because at least the ground is free. Your wife hands you a wooden bowl. Inside is porridge. It's a thick paste made from emmer wheat, which is a type of grain that's less wheat and more edible plant matter that won't immediately kill you. It's been ground into flour using stones, mixed with water, and cooked into a porridge that has the consistency of library paste and roughly the same flavor profile. You've been eating this porridge every single morning for your entire life. Your father ate it. His father ate it. If you have sons, which you do, 3 of them, they'll eat it too. Their sons will eat it. Forever. This is breakfast. This is everyone's breakfast, unless you're a noble, in which case you get to add honey, which must be absolutely delightful. On the side, there's bread, but not bread as you know it. This is coarse barley bread, dense and heavy. It could be used as a doorstop or possibly as a weapon in an emergency. It's not bad when it's fresh, right out of the clay oven. The problem is, it's never fresh. Bread lasts for days, sometimes a week or more, getting harder and harder until you have to dip it in your beer just to make it soft enough to chew without breaking your teeth. Speaking of teeth, yours hurt. They always hurt. The bread is full of grit from the stone grinding process. Every bite wears down your enamel a little more. By the time you're 40, if you live that long, you'll be missing half your teeth. But that's a problem for future you. You chew your bread. You swallow your porridge. You wash it down with beer. Your stomach, which has been trained on this exact diet for 28 years, accepts it without complaint. It knows nothing else. There's no coffee, because coffee won't be discovered for another 2,000 years. There's no orange juice. No milk unless you personally own a goat. And if you do, you're not drinking it because milk spoils in 20 minutes in this heat. You're making cheese with it because cheese lasts longer and can be traded. You finish eating, your wife is already preparing the same meal for tonight. It will also be porridge and bread. Tomorrow morning, porridge and bread. Tomorrow night, you guessed it. Breakfast in ancient Egypt isn't the most important meal of the day. It's just the first disappointment. Time to get dressed. This will take approximately 30 seconds. You own one outfit. One, it's a simple linen kilt that wraps around your waist and ties with a string. That's it. No shirt. No pants. No underwear. No socks. Just a rectangle of linen cloth and hope. The linen is rough and stained. It was white once, maybe a year ago when it was new. Now it's the color of dirt because that's what it's covered in. Dirt, sweat, and limestone dust that never quite comes out no matter how many times you beat it against rocks at the river. You've washed this kilt exactly 3 times since you got it. Each time, it dried in the sun, stiff as a board, and took days to soften up again. Laundry isn't a weekly event. It's a maybe quarterly event if you're motivated and the Nile isn't too far to walk to. Your wife braids her hair. Not for fashion, though the style is attractive. She braids it to keep it out of the way while she works. Long hair gets caught in grinding stones, gets into food, attracts more lice than unbraided hair. So up it goes, tight against her head. She wraps herself in a similar linen dress that goes from chest to ankles. It's also stained. It's also her only outfit. She has no jewelry except maybe a string of cheap beads if you manage to trade for them at the last festival. The kids get nothing until they're about 6 years old. They run around naked because children's clothing is an unnecessary expense, and it's 100 degrees outside anyway. Why waste linen on someone who's going to outgrow it in 6 months? No one bathes. Not regularly. Water is too precious to use for bathing. Bathing is a luxury reserved for religious ceremonies or when you accidentally fall in the Nile, which happens, but not on purpose. You do have oil, though. Not expensive olive oil. That's for rich people. This is castor oil, or cheaper animal fat, that you rub on your skin to keep it from cracking in the brutal dryness. It doesn't smell good. It feels greasy and attracts dust. But it keeps your skin from literally peeling off your body like old papyrus. So you use it. You rub a little oil on your arms and face. It helps. Barely. Getting dressed is done. You're wearing a dirty linen skirt, no shoes, and a light coating of questionable oil. You're ready for work. You look exactly like everyone else in the village. There's no fashion, no personal style, Just practical survival. The sun is rising now. You can see the golden edge cresting the cliffs to the east. The temperature is already climbing. You can feel it. In an hour, it'll be unbearable. In 2 hours, it'll be dangerous. You have to get to the worksite before the heat becomes deadly. You step out of your house into the narrow dirt street. Your neighbors are doing the same. There's Keddy, the stonemason, older than you, walking with a limp from an old injury. There's Nacht, another laborer, young and still optimistic. There's Casa, who works the fields during planting season and hauls stones during the dry season like you. Everyone heading in different directions depending on their assignment, but all heading to work. Because work is mandatory, and missing work means no rations, and no rations means your family doesn't eat. You walk through the village. It's small. Maybe 5 minutes to cross from one end to the other. Every house looks the same. Mud brick walls, flat roofs, tiny wooden doors. Narrow streets, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass. Everything packed tight together because space is limited by the valley walls and protection from desert winds matters. At the edge of the village, you pass the foreman's house. You can tell it's his because it's bigger. Not mansion big, but 2 rooms instead of 1. He has a small courtyard. His wife doesn't have to grind her own grain because they can afford to pay someone else's wife to do it. His kids wear actual linen clothes instead of running around naked. This is what success looks like when you're a worker. Not wealth. Not luxury. Just slightly less misery. 1 extra room. Servants to do the worst chores. Your kids wearing clothes. You keep walking. You pass through the village gate in the wall. The desert stretches before you. The path to the Valley of the Kings winds up through rocky terrain, climbing gradually toward the cliffs. The sun is fully up now. The heat is building fast. You have about a 20-minute walk ahead of you. Uphill. Over rocky, uneven ground. Barefoot because you don't own shoes. Other workers are on the path ahead of you and behind you. A line of men walking to work like they do every day. Like they did yesterday. Like they'll do tomorrow. Your day has officially started. And it's going to get so much worse. You arrive at the Valley of the Kings. But don't let the name fool you. This isn't some sacred, mystical place, humming with ancient energy. It's a construction site. Dust everywhere. Noise everywhere. And about 300 sweaty men trying not to die of heat stroke before the lunch break. The valley is a series of wadis. Dry valleys carved into limestone cliffs on the west bank of the Nile. West in Egyptian cosmology is the land of the dead. The place where the sun dies each night before being reborn at dawn. Which is fitting because you'll probably die here eventually. Most workers do. Not dramatically. Just gradually. Worn down until your body gives out. Everywhere you look there's activity. Wooden scaffolding leans against cliff faces. Ramps made of mud, brick, and wooden planks lead up to tomb entrances. Piles of limestone blocks sit waiting to be moved. Copper tools glint in the early morning sun. And overseers with wooden sticks walk among the workers, making sure nobody slacks off. And trust me, they will hit you with those sticks. Not maliciously. Just routinely. It's management. It's how you keep 300 workers motivated when their motivation is essentially don't starve. The tomb you're working on belongs to a pharaoh who's still alive. He's probably in his palace right now in Memphis or Thebes, eating fresh figs off a golden plate, being fanned by servants, discussing important matters of state with his vizier. Meanwhile, you're about to haul 2-ton limestone blocks up a 30-degree ramp in 105-degree heat. Your job specifically is simple. You're a hauler. That means you grab a thick rope attached to a wooden sledge. And on that sledge sits a massive stone block, And you pull? You and about 20 other men all pull together. Heave. Rest. Heave. Rest. For hours. There's a rhythm to it. A foreman stands nearby and chants to keep everyone synchronized. Heave rest, over and over. It's the ancient Egyptian equivalent of a work song or a sea shanty. Except, instead of sailing the ocean, you're pulling several thousand pounds of rock uphill, and your back is screaming, and your hands are bleeding, and you can't stop, because if the rhythm breaks, the block slides backward. The guy next to you is named Seneb. He's 35 years old. It looks 60. His hands are so calloused, they look like they're made of leather instead of skin. His back is permanently curved from years of bending and pulling. He lost 2 fingers to a dropped block last year. The block was being lowered by rope, and the rope snapped, and the block fell, and his hand was underneath. Just gone. 2 fingers. He's considered lucky because the block only crushed his fingers instead of his skull. Welcome to work. This is what you'll do until noon. When you get a 30-minute break to eat bread and drink warm beer in whatever tiny patch of shade you can find, then you'll do it again until the sun starts setting and the foreman finally let you stop. There are no coffee breaks. No bathroom breaks unless you want to risk losing half your daily ration for slacking. No ergonomic workplace safety standards. No OSHA regulations. No workers' compensation. Just rope, rock, and the constant knowledge that one mistake, one slipped rope, one crumbling ramp, and you're paced on the desert floor. But hey, the tomb is going to look magnificent in 3,000 years when archaeologists discover it. You see the foreman over by the supply area. He's writing on a papyrus scroll with a reed brush. You think maybe he's recording names, keeping track of who's here, who's working hard, who might deserve extra rations. He's not. He's recording lost labor hours. 4 workers died last month when a ramp collapsed. The foreman wrote down 40 hours of lost productivity. That's what matters to the administration. Not the men, not their families. The hours, the delay to the construction schedule. Those 4 men had families. They had wives who are now widows, children who are now fatherless. Their families received their final rations and then nothing. New workers were assigned to replace them. Work continued. The pyramid building project didn't even slow down. Your life has a value. That value is measured in labor hours, not in humanity. Not everyone here is a hauler. Some guys have it better, or at least different. The skilled workers have slightly less terrible jobs, which in ancient Egypt counts as privilege. Kedi the stonemason is inside the tomb right now, deep in one of the carved corridors. He's carving hieroglyphics into the smoothed limestone wall. He can't read them. He's not educated. He can't tell you what the symbols mean or what story they're telling. But he can copy them perfectly. A scribe came through earlier and drew the symbols in red ink on the wall. Now Kedi follows the lines with his copper chisel. Tap, tap, tap. All day. Every day. His copper mallet in one hand. Chisel in the other. Tap, tap, tap. The sound echoes through the tomb corridor, mixing with a dozen other masons, all doing the same thing. His job is slightly less likely to kill him suddenly. No blocks falling from above. No ramps collapsing. But it'll definitely kill him slowly. Limestone dust fills the tomb corridors. Every breath he takes fills his lungs with fine white powder. You can see it hanging in the air around the oil lamps like smoke. Most masons develop a chronic cough by their 30s, by their 40s. If they live that long. They're coughing up blood. Their lungs are so damaged they can barely breathe. They die slowly, suffocating in their own beds while their families watch helplessly. But Kedi is valuable. He's skilled labor. His work is permanent. The hieroglyphics he carves will outlast empires. They'll still be there in 3,000 years when tourists from countries that don't exist yet come to marvel at ancient Egyptian artistry. He won't be remembered. His name won't be on anything. No inscription will say carved by Khedi. But his work will exist forever. He makes slightly more than you in rations. 10 loaves of bread instead of 9. 3 jugs of beer instead of 2. His house is slightly bigger. 1.5 rooms instead of 1. His kids might learn the mason trade instead of becoming haulers. One of his sons is already apprenticing. Learning to hold the chisel. Learning the rhythm. That's the dream when you're at the bottom of the pyramid. Not wealth. Not freedom. Just dying of lung disease instead of being crushed by a block. That's upward mobility. Egyptian style. The masons work inside the tomb, where it's cooler but darker, and the air doesn't move. They work by oil lamp light. The lamps burn castor oil, and they smoke constantly. More lung damage. But at least they're not in the direct sun. At least they're not hauling blocks up ramps. Meanwhile, you're outside. Pulling ropes. Sweating through your only linen kilt. Watching the masons come and go. And thinking, man, I wish I could die of lung disease instead of heat stroke. But you can't be a mason. You weren't born into a mason family. Your father was a laborer. A hauler. His father was a hauler. You are a hauler. Your son will be a hauler. This is the way. This is Ma'at. The cosmic order. Everyone in their place. Forever. The only ladder in ancient Egypt is the one you're building for the masons to climb so they can reach the high parts of the tomb walls to carve someone else's name. If you think your job is bad, spare a thought for the farmers. Right now, during the dry season, you're here hauling blocks. But during the growing and harvest seasons, some workers are in the fields doing work that makes your job look easy. Because at least you get to stand upright sometimes. Farming in ancient Egypt is backbreaking in the most literal sense possible. You spend your entire day bent over, planting seeds in the post-flood soil, pulling weeds that grow faster than the crops, digging and maintaining irrigation channels, harvesting grain with a copper sickle while the sun cooks you like meat on a spit. The Nile floods every year between July and September. This is the inundation, and it's the most important event in the Egyptian calendar. The flood deposits rich, dark silt all over the fields. It's like free fertilizer, naturally occurring, making Egypt the most productive agricultural region in the ancient world. But when the flood recedes, the real work begins. You have to plant immediately. The growing season is short. If you miss the window, crops fail. If crops fail, people starve. If people starve, it's somehow your fault, even though you can't control the weather or the river. And the overseer's stick finds your back. After planting comes the endless maintenance. Irrigation. The Nile doesn't water your fields for you, except during the flood. For the rest of the year, you have to move water manually from the river to the fields. This means using a shaduf, a bucket on a long pole balanced on a fulcrum. You dip the bucket in the canal. Use your body weight to lift it. Swing it over, and pour it into the irrigation channel. Then you do it again. And again. And again. For hours, your shoulders burn like fire. Your back screams. But the crops need water or they die. And if they die, you die. So you keep going. During harvest season, you cut grain from sunup to sundown. Your hands blister from gripping the sickle. Your back is permanently bent from leaning over all day. Chaff gets everywhere. In your hair, in your eyes, in your lungs. You cough constantly. You sneeze. You bleed from 1,000 tiny cuts from the sharp grain stalks. And here's the real kicker. You don't own the land you're farming. The pharaoh owns it. Technically, He owns everything in Egypt, including you. You farm the land. You do all the work. And then the government takes most of the harvest as tax. The tax rate is brutal. Sometimes 50%. Sometimes more. The government takes their share first. And you get what's left, which is barely enough to feed your family until the next harvest. Bad harvest. Not enough rain. Nile doesn't flood properly. Too bad. The taxes stay the same. So you give the government their share, and then you starve a little. Or a lot. Depending on how bad the harvest was. At least you haulers get guaranteed rations from the government. You work. You get 10 loaves of bread every 10 days. It's not much, but it's predictable. Farmers, their survival depends on whether it rains enough, but not too much. Whether the Nile floods at exactly the right time and exactly the right amount. Whether locusts don't come and eat everything. Whether rats don't get into the grain storage. Whether disease doesn't kill the crops. Farmers aren't workers. They're professional prayers. Hoping to every god in the Egyptian pantheon that this year won't be the year everything goes wrong. Let's talk about workplace safety. Actually, let's not. Because it doesn't exist. You're pulling a sledge loaded with a 2-ton limestone block up a wooden ramp. The ramp is old. It was built last year and has been used constantly since then. Some of the planks are cracked. Some are bowing under the weight, but replacing them would slow down construction, would require stopping work, would delay the schedule. So they stay. The rope you're pulling is made from twisted papyrus fibers. It's strong, usually, but sometimes it frays. Sometimes it snaps. When that happens, the block slides backward down the ramp, and anyone in its path becomes ancient Egyptian roadkill. Last month, a ramp collapsed completely. The support beams just gave way under the weight. 4 workers died instantly, crushed under falling blocks and splintering wood. 2 more died later from their injuries. Slowly, painfully, over the course of days. There was a brief ceremony. A priest said some words about the afterlife. The families received their loved ones' final rations. Then new workers were assigned to replace the dead ones. Work continued the next day. Inside the tomb, a ceiling support beam cracks. You can hear it. A sound like breaking bones echoing through the stone corridor. A chunk of limestone the size of a man's torso falls from the ceiling. A mason is directly underneath, crouching, working on a floor carving. He doesn't die, but his arm is shattered. Bone is visible through the skin. White and sharp. He's screaming. Other workers carry him out into the sunlight. The barber surgeon will try to set the bone later with no anesthesia, no antibiotics, and no real understanding of why infections happen. He'll probably lose the arm. If he's lucky, he'll survive with a stump and figure out how to work one-handed. If he's unlucky, and he probably is, the infection will spread. His arm will swell, turn red, start to stink, fever will set in, and he'll be dead within a week. Delirious and in agony. There's no workers' compensation, no disability pay, no safety net. His family will lose his income. His wife will have to find work. Maybe carrying water for other households. Maybe weaving cloth to sell. Maybe something worse. His children will start working younger than planned. The cycle continues. Heat exhaustion is common. Every single day. Someone collapses. Sometimes they recover after being dragged to shade and given water and beer. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just stop breathing and that's it. Heat stroke. Dead at 30. You learn to recognize the signs. The way someone starts swaying while they walk. The confused look in their eyes. The way they stop sweating even though it's 110 degrees. The sudden silence before they drop. You've learned to step over bodies. Not dead bodies. Well, Sometimes dead bodies, but mostly just exhausted workers who collapsed and haven't been dragged to shade yet because everyone else is too busy trying not to collapse themselves. This is normal. This is Tuesday. This is just how construction works in ancient Egypt. The pyramid complex is being built, block by block, on a foundation of broken backs and dead workers. Somewhere in a palace hundreds of miles away, a pharaoh is having his portrait painted for a temple wall. He looks glorious in the painting. Powerful, immortal, divine. Meanwhile, you're trying not to die before the lunch break. You might be thinking, this job is terrible. I quit. I'm walking off this work site and finding something better to do with my life. Yeah. About that. You can't quit. Legally. You cannot just walk away. You're assigned to this project by the government. You're required to work. This is your job. This is your life. There is no resignation letter. There is no 2 weeks notice. There is no finding a better opportunity elsewhere. If you don't show up to work, you don't get your rations. If you don't get your rations, your family doesn't eat. Simple as that. But it's worse than that. If you repeatedly don't show up, if you're marked as unreliable or lazy or a troublemaker, you're listed as a deserter. Punishment for desertion ranges from public beating to having your entire family's rations cut too. In extreme cases, being sent to forced labor in the mines. The mines are where they send people they want to die but can't officially execute. Copper mines, gold mines, deep holes in the desert where you chip rock in darkness until you collapse. Life expectancy in the mines is measured in months, not years. You can't switch jobs. You were born into this. Your father hauled stones for the government. You haul stones for the government. Your son will haul stones for the government. There's no career counselor, no job placement service, no LinkedIn profile where you can pivot to a new industry. You have one skill: hauling heavy things. That's it. That's your entire resume. And there's no demand for that skill anywhere except here. Doing this. Forever. Even if you wanted to run away, where would you go? Egypt is the Nile Valley. A thin strip of green in an ocean of sand. On both sides, the desert. The desert will kill you faster than this job will. You could try to reach another city, another province, but you'd need travel papers. Those require government permission. You won't get permission. You're needed here. You could try to run at night. Hope you don't get caught. But if you do get caught, and you probably will, because where are you going to hide in a valley surrounded by cliffs? The punishment is severe. Very severe. You're not a slave, technically, but you're not free either. You're something in between. Something we don't have a good word for in modern English. Bound by necessity. Locked by birth. Trapped by a social structure so rigid it lasted 3,000 years. So you pull your rope, you hole your block, you drink your warm beer during your 30-minute lunch break. Sitting in a tiny patch of shade with 20 other men who smell exactly like you. And you pray to whatever gods might be listening that tomorrow will be the same as today. Because at least today didn't kill you. 4 more hours until sundown. 4 more hours of pulling and hauling and sweating and hurting. Then you get to walk 20 minutes back to your village. Then you get to eat the same porridge you ate this morning. Then you get to collapse on your reed mat and sleep just long enough to do it all again tomorrow. Living the dream. The ancient Egyptian worker dream. Which is mostly just not dying. Let's talk about food. Specifically, how you get it. What it is. And why it's barely enough to keep you alive. You don't shop for food. There are no grocery stores. No farmers markets where you can browse fresh produce. No meal kit delivery services. No DoorDash. You get rations. Every 10 days. You line up at the government distribution center with hundreds of other workers. It's early morning because everything in Egypt happens early before the heat becomes deadly. A scribe sits at a table with a papyrus scroll. Reed brush and ink. He calls out names. When he calls yours, you step forward. He makes a mark on his scroll. You've been recorded. You exist in the bureaucracy. And you receive your payment for 10 days of hauling stones. 10 loaves of bread. Barley bread. Dense and heavy. Each loaf weighs about a pound. They'll last the full 10 days if you ration carefully and keep them away from mice. 2 jugs of beer. Weak beer. Nutritious. Safer than water. Each jug holds maybe 2 liters. You'll drink this every day because drinking the Nile water straight will give you parasites that'll live in your intestines for the rest of your life. Occasionally, some onions, maybe a handful. They add flavor to your porridge and they don't spoil quickly in the heat. Occasionally, some garlic, a few cloves if the harvest was good. Garlic is both food and medicine. It's supposed to give you strength and keep away evil spirits. It mostly just makes your breath smell. Very occasionally. A handful of dates. Sweet. Dense with calories. And delicious. These are treats. You save them. You give them to your kids. You trade them for things you need. Very occasionally. Oil for cooking. Maybe a small clay jar of vegetable oil or animal fat. This is precious. This makes food less terrible. You use it sparingly. Maybe once every 10 days. A sliver of fish. Dried fish. Salted fish. Fish that's been sitting in the sun for a while. It's protein. Your body needs it. You're not going to complain about the smell. This is your salary. This is what you get for working 12 hours a day. 6 days a week. Hauling multi-ton blocks of limestone up ramps in 100-degree heat. This is your payment for slowly destroying your body in service to a pharaoh you'll never meet. If you do the math, and please don't because it's depressing, you're getting about 1,800 calories per day. That's subsistence level. That's technically alive. That's your body running on minimum power mode just to keep your heart beating and your lungs breathing. For reference, a modern construction worker doing similar physical labor needs about 3,000 to 4,000 calories per day to maintain body weight and health. You're running a 1,500 calorie deficit. Every single day, your body is slowly consuming itself, burning through muscle, eating its own tissues to survive. You're hungry all the time. Not I skipped lunch hungry. Deep, gnawing, never goes away hungry. But you can't complain to the scribe. Well, you can, but it won't help. The rations are the rations. The government has determined how much food you need to survive and continue working. And they've determined that this is it. Not a grain more. If you want more food, you have to find creative ways to get it. Maybe you grow a small vegetable patch behind your house. A few onions. Some lettuce if you can spare the water. Maybe you keep chickens for eggs. Eggs are protein. They're valuable. You can eat them or trade them. Maybe you trade with neighbors. You swap some of your bread for their fish, or your beer for their cloth. Or you do extra work for someone who can pay you in food. Or you steal. Not proudly. Not openly. But when your kids are hungry and your rations ran out 2 days before distribution and payday isn't for another 8 days, you find a way. Maybe an extra loaf of bread accidentally ends up in your bag during distribution. The scribe didn't notice. Maybe you take some dates from the storage area when the overseer is looking the other way. The scribes know this happens. The overseers know. They could stop it. They could watch more carefully. Post guards punish theft harshly. But they don't. Because if workers are literally starving, unable to stand, they stop working effectively. And then the tomb construction falls behind schedule. And then someone higher up starts asking questions. So there's an unspoken arrangement, an unofficial policy. Steal a little, quietly, and don't get caught. Get caught, and you'll be beaten publicly as an example to others. But if you're subtle about it, if you only take enough to survive, everyone looks the other way. Welcome to the ancient Egyptian honor system. Take what you need to not die, but not enough that we have to pretend to care. After your 12-hour shift, you walk home. 20 minutes over rocky terrain. Your feet hurt. Your back hurts. Everything hurts. But you're fantasizing about food. Maybe tonight there'll be meat. Maybe someone caught fish. Maybe there's fruit. Maybe literally anything other than what you already know you're about to eat. You get home. Your wife has been cooking. The house smells like smoke and grain. She serves dinner with a clay bowl and a flat piece of stone that serves as a plate. Porridge. Again. It's the same porridge you had for breakfast. The same porridge you had yesterday morning and yesterday evening. The same porridge you had last week. The same porridge you'll have tomorrow. It's emmer wheat paste. Maybe with some onions added if you're lucky. Maybe with a tiny bit of that precious oil to make it less dry. You eat it with bread. The bread is 3 days old now. It's hard enough to use as a construction tool. You have to dip it in your beer to soften it enough to bite without breaking your teeth. There's no variety. No spices except salt. And only if you manage to save some from last month's ration. No seasoning. No herbs except whatever wild ones your wife found growing near the river. No flavor. Just calories. Just fuel. Just enough to keep you alive for another day of work. Meat. You get meat maybe 10 times a year. During major religious festivals, the government distributes beef or goat to workers. Everyone lines up. You get a piece about the size of your palm, maybe 200 grams. You savor every single chewy, gristly, fatty bite because it's the only meat you'll eat this month. Your body craves protein so badly that even tough, overcooked goat tastes like the most delicious thing you've ever eaten. Fish, occasionally. If the fisherman had a good catch and you managed to trade some bread for a portion, but fish spoils in hours in this heat. Unless you eat it immediately. Preferably the same day it's caught. It's not food. It's poison. Food poisoning will make you wish you were dead. Vomiting. Diarrhea. Fever. Dehydration. You could die. People do die. Vegetables, onions. Mostly, you eat a lot of onions. Garlic sometimes. Leeks if you're doing well. Lettuce if you manage to grow some in your tiny garden patch. But vegetables require water to grow. And water is precious. So your vegetable intake is minimal. Fruit during harvest season. Maybe. Figs are common in late summer. Dates in the fall. Grapes if you can afford to trade for them. But fruit is expensive in terms of barter value. So you save it for special occasions or when someone's sick and needs the extra nutrients. Your entire diet is bread, beer, porridge, and onions. That's it. Day after day. Year after year. For your entire life, you finish eating. Your stomach is full. The physical sensation of fullness, but your body is still hungry because fullness isn't the same as nutrition. You're missing vitamins you've never heard of. Minerals you don't have names for. Protein your muscles desperately need. But vitamins won't be discovered for another 3,000 years. So you don't know why you feel tired all the time. You just know you're exhausted. Your teeth hurt. Your gums bleed when you chew. Your kids are smaller than they should be. Your wife looks older than her age. Everyone is just tired all the time. But hey, at least you're not starving. Technically, you're thirsty. It's 105 degrees. You've been working in the sun all day, sweating through your only linen kilt. You need water desperately. The Nile is right there. You can see it from the village. Beautiful. Blue, green. Life-giving Nile. The reason Egypt exists, the reason civilization exists here in the middle of the desert, it's also full of parasites, bacteria, and whatever the village upstream dumped in it this morning. Drinking straight from the Nile is like playing Russian roulette with your intestines. Sometimes you're fine. Your body fights off whatever was in the water. Sometimes you get a parasite that lives in your gut for the rest of your life, slowly stealing nutrients, making you even more malnourished than you already are. Sometimes you get schistosomiasis. It's a parasitic worm disease spread through water. The parasites enter through your skin when you're in the water or through your mouth when you drink. They migrate to your intestines or bladder. They lay eggs. Those eggs cause chronic inflammation, pain, blood in your urine, and eventually organ damage. It's incredibly common in ancient Egypt. When modern archaeologists examine mummies, they find evidence of schistosomiasis everywhere. Most people just lived with it their entire lives because there was no cure. There was no way to avoid it except never going in the water. And you have to go in the water. You bathe in it. Occasionally, you wash your clothes in it. Rarely, you fish in it. You irrigate crops with it. Water is life. Literally. But it's also slowly killing you. So you drink beer instead. We've covered this. Beer is safer because the brewing process involves boiling water, which kills most pathogens. Most, not all. But it's safer than drinking straight Nile water. Water for cooking comes from large clay jars that your wife or children fill at the river. The water sits in the jars for a day or two. The sediment, the dirt, the debris, it all sinks to the bottom. The clearer water at the top is used for cooking. It's still not clean. It still has bacteria. But it's cleaner than scooping straight from the river. Water for drinking is usually beer. When beer supplies run low, which happens sometimes, you drink the jar water. You're supposed to boil it first if you have firewood to spare, which you often don't because firewood is expensive and you need it for cooking food. So, sometimes you just take your chances. You drink the water unboiled and you hope for the best. Every drink of water is a gamble. Will this be the sip that gives you dysentery? Will this be the cup that introduces a parasite to your digestive system? You don't know. Nobody knows. There's no way to test the water. No way to make it safe except boiling. And you can't always do that. You just drink when you're thirsty and hope for the best. Modern humans worry about whether their water is properly filtered, whether it has the right mineral content, whether the pH level is optimal. You're worried about whether your water has literal worms in it that will burrow into your organs. And the answer is probably yes. Let's talk about what this diet does to your body over time. You're malnourished, not severely enough to be starving, not dying of famine. You're getting enough calories to function, to work, to survive. But you're missing key nutrients. Lots of them. Your teeth are falling out. By age 30, you're missing several teeth. The grit in the bread. Tiny fragments of stone from the grinding process. It wears down your enamel every single day. Cavities are rampant. Infections are common. There's no dentist. Just a guy with a pair of pliers who will yank your tooth out if the pain becomes unbearable. Your gums bleed. Vitamin C deficiency. You don't get enough fresh vegetables or fruit. Your body can't repair tissue properly. Your gums recede. They bleed when you chew. Eventually, Even healthy teeth fall out because the gums can't hold them anymore. Your kids are small. Stunted growth from chronic malnutrition. They're not getting enough protein or calories during their crucial growth years. They'll never reach their full genetic height potential. They'll always be smaller, weaker than they could have been. You're tired. Always. Always tired. Not just end of the day tired. Bone-deep exhaustion that never goes away no matter how much you sleep. Your body is running on minimum power to conserve energy. You get sick easily. A cold becomes bronchitis. A small cut becomes an infection. Your immune system is weak because you don't have enough nutrients to maintain it properly. You're one bad illness away from death. Always. Your wife is anemic. She's pale, constantly weak, exhausted beyond what her work should cause. She has no access to iron-rich foods or supplements. She just suffers through it, especially after each childbirth, when blood loss makes the anemia even worse. Women in ancient Egypt often died in childbirth, but those who survived faced chronic health problems that never got treated. You don't know what vitamins are. You don't know why you feel this way. You don't know that your body is missing thiamine, niacin, vitamin C, vitamin D, iron, calcium. You just accept it as normal because everyone feels this way. Everyone is tired. Everyone is sick. Everyone is falling apart by age 35. The nobles eat better. They have meat regularly, sometimes daily. Fresh vegetables delivered from their estates. Fruit whenever they want it. Honey to sweeten their food. Wine instead of weak beer. They live longer because of it. They're taller, healthier. Their kids grow properly. But you'll never eat like them. You're in different pyramids, different worlds, different realities happening simultaneously in the same valley. You chew your gritty bread with your remaining teeth and try not to think about it too much. Sometimes, the harvest fails. The Nile doesn't flood enough one year. The water level stays low. Not enough silt gets deposited on the fields. Crops struggle, or the Nile floods too much. The water stays high too long. Seeds rot in the waterlogged soil. Or locusts come. Or drought hits the regions where rain normally supplements the Nile. Or disease kills the crops. When that happens, grain reserves run low. The government has stockpiles for emergencies. But sometimes the emergency is bigger than the stockpile. Rations are cut. Instead of 10 loaves per 10 days, you get 7. Instead of 2 jugs of beer, you get 1. The dates disappear entirely. The oil stops being distributed. Even onions become scarce. You're already barely surviving on full rations. Now you're doing it on 30% less food. People start dying. The elderly first. They can't survive on reduced rations. Their bodies give out. Then the very young. Babies. Toddlers. Their small bodies need nutrients they're not getting. Then the sick. Anyone who was already weak. Then, if the famine goes on long enough, the workers themselves. Strong men in their prime. Dropping dead from malnutrition and exhaustion. The tomb construction doesn't stop though. Can't stop. The pharaoh needs his eternal resting place ready for when he dies. So you keep working. On even less food. While people around you literally starve to death. The government eventually opens emergency grain reserves. Maybe. If there are any. If the famine isn't everywhere. If the officials aren't hoarding supplies for themselves. Sometimes help comes. Sometimes it doesn't. Famine is rare. Maybe once or twice in a generation. But when it happens, the bottom of the pyramid, which is you, feels it first and worst. The nobles will be fine. They have private stockpiles, personal reserves. They might eat less meat, but they won't starve. You might, but sure? Tell me again how the pyramids are an inspiring achievement of human cooperation and ingenuity. You wake up one morning and you're sick. Fever. Body aches. Chills despite the heat. Maybe you ate bad fish 2 days ago. Maybe you drank water that had something wrong with it. Maybe a mosquito bit you and now you have malaria. Though you don't know that because germ theory won't exist for another 3,000 years. You need help. You need a doctor. The good news is that Egypt has doctors. Real ones. They study medicine. They train for years. They have procedures and treatments. They keep detailed records of symptoms and outcomes. Egyptian medicine is actually quite advanced for the ancient world. The bad news is that their understanding of how disease works is, let's say, creative. You drag yourself to the village medical station. There's a doctor here, assigned by the government to keep workers healthy enough to work. He examines you by looking at your eyes, feeling your forehead, checking your pulse at your wrist and neck, and possibly tasting your urine. Yes, tasting it. It's diagnostic. The sweetness or bitterness supposedly tells him things about your internal balance. His diagnosis comes quickly. Your humors are unbalanced. You have too much heat in your body. This excess heat is causing your fever and body aches. The treatment? Bloodletting. He takes out a bronze knife. It's not particularly sharp. It's been used on other patients and hasn't been cleaned. Not really. Because the connection between cleanliness and infection isn't understood yet. He makes a cut on your arm. Not deep, but enough. You bleed into a clay bowl. There's no anesthesia, no numbing agent. You just have to sit there while he cuts you and watch your blood drain out. He decides when you've lost enough blood based on experience and intuition. Which is to say, based on vibes. When he's satisfied, he bandages your arm with linen soaked in honey. The honey part is actually good. Honey is naturally antibacterial. It'll help prevent infection. But you've just lost blood you couldn't afford to lose, while already being malnourished and dehydrated. Alternative treatments available include poultices made from animal dung applied directly to wounds. The theory is that the heat from the dung draws out bad humors. The reality is that you're putting feces on an open wound, which seems like it would cause more problems than it solves. But this is medicine. Drinking donkey milk for stomach problems. The milk is supposed to soothe your digestive system. It might actually help. Or it might give you different stomach problems because milk spoils fast. Chewing raw garlic for basically everything. Headache garlic. Cough garlic. Infected wound garlic. Garlic is the ancient Egyptian cure-all. And honestly, it probably helps sometimes because garlic does have antimicrobial properties. Though nobody knows that yet. Prayers to Sekhmet, the goddess of both healing and disease. She causes illness and she cures it. Apparently, which seems like a conflict of interest, but that's how gods work. You pray. You make offerings. You hope she's in a good mood. If you have a broken bone, they'll actually do a decent job. This is one thing Egyptian medicine does well. They set the bone, splint it with wood and linen wrappings, and if you're lucky and it doesn't get infected, it heals properly. Archaeologists have found mummies with well-healed fractures. Evidence that bone setting was effective. But if you have an infection, you're rolling the dice. Sometimes honey poultices work. Sometimes prayer works. Or at least you recover on your own and give the prayer credit. Sometimes the infection spreads. Your arm swells, turns red, starts to smell like rot. Fever sets in. Delirium. Death. There are no antibiotics. Those are 3,000 years away. There are no painkillers except beer and maybe opium if you're wealthy. Which you definitely are not. Workers get beer. That's your painkiller and your medicine and your safe drinking water all in one. You either get better or you don't. Medicine helps sometimes. Sometimes it makes things worse. Like when bloodletting weakens you further. Mostly you just suffer and hope your body figures out how to heal itself. Let's talk about pain. Constant. Every day. The chronic pain that modern humans simply don't deal with at this level. Your back hurts. Every single day. From hauling stones, from bending over, from sleeping on a reed mat on a hard surface. By age 30, your spine is already degenerating. Modern X-rays of Egyptian mummy spines show compression fractures, herniated discs, severe arthritis. Your vertebrae are grinding against each other. Your discs are cracked. Your body is breaking down. Your joints ache constantly. Knees, especially. From kneeling, squatting, climbing ramps, walking on uneven, rocky ground barefoot for hours every day. Your ankles are swollen. Your feet are covered in thick calluses and deep cracks that never fully heal. Your hands are damaged beyond repair. Cuts, burns, broken fingers from accidents with tools or falling blocks. Blisters that turned into calluses that turned into scar tissue. They never heal properly because you keep using them. You can't stop working just because your hand hurts. So the damage accumulates. Your teeth cause constant pain. We've covered the cavity problem. But it's not just cavities. It's abscesses. Pockets of infection in your gums. It's exposed nerves from worn-down enamel. Every meal hurts. Cold water hurts. Hot food hurts. You just learn to eat through the pain. Headaches are your constant companion. From dehydration because you're always slightly dehydrated. From malnutrition. From sun exposure. Hours and hours in direct sunlight with no hat. No shade. From stress. The constant low-level anxiety of survival. There's no Tylenol. No Advil. No aspirin. You just have a headache. All day. Maybe for days on end. And here's the thing. There's nothing you can do about any of this. Modern humans take for granted that pain can be managed. You have a headache. You take ibuprofen. Your back hurts. You use a heating pad. See a chiropractor. Get a massage. You need rest. Do you take a sick day? All these options exist. You have none of those options. Zero. You work through pain. Every single day. Pain is just part of life. You're 28 years old and you feel 70. Your body is falling apart in real time and there's no way to stop it or even slow it down. The nobles have it better. They have access to better medical care. More food, which means better healing. Softer beds, which means less joint damage. They still hurt. They're still human. But less. Significantly less. Meanwhile, you're grinding your teeth through another 12-hour shift with a back spasm that makes you want to cry. But crying is weakness, and weakness gets you mocked or replaced. So you just hurt. At night, you lie on your reed mat. Your back throbs. Your knees ache. Your head pounds. Your hands are stiff and painful. You drift off to sleep not because you're comfortable, but because your body literally shuts down from exhaustion, forcing unconsciousness because it's the only break you get. And tomorrow, you'll wake up and do it all again. With the same pain, plus new pain from whatever injury you get today. Forever. But workers aren't completely powerless. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, they fight back. The year is 1152 BCE. You're at Deir el-Medina. The tomb workers haven't been paid in a month. The rations didn't arrive. The government distribution day came and went. And the scribes had nothing to give out. The government is having economic problems. There's corruption in the supply chain. Someone's stealing. Someone's hoarding. Someone's incompetent. But you don't care about the reasons. You don't care about bureaucratic explanations. You care that your family is hungry. Your kids are crying. Your wife is getting weaker by the day. Something has to change. The workers gather in the evening, informal at first, just talking, complaining. But then someone, you don't know who, suggests something radical. What if we just stop working? This is dangerous talk. You don't refuse to work for Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a living god, the intermediary between humans and the divine. Refusing to work on his tomb is basically heresy. It's like spitting on the concept of Ma'at itself, the cosmic order. But your children are hungry. Your wife hasn't eaten properly in days. Desperation makes you brave or stupid. And right now there's no difference between the two. So you strike. All of you. Every worker in the village makes the decision together. You walk off the job site. You refuse to pick up tools. And you march as a group to the temple administrative building, where the government officials have their offices. You sit down in front of the gate. Hundreds of you, blocking the entrance. And you chant. Someone starts it and everyone joins in. The words echo off the limestone walls. We are hungry, we are thirsty, we have no clothes, we have no oil, we have no fish. Tell our superiors this is the first recorded labor strike in human history. Right here, right now, and you're part of it. Officials come out. They look nervous. They've never seen this before. They promise the rations will arrive soon. Just be patient. Just go back to work. You don't move. Days pass. You're still sitting there. Still chanting. Still refusing to work. More officials come. Higher-ranking ones. They threaten you. They could have you arrested. Beaten. They could execute the leaders. Set an example. But here's the thing. There are hundreds of you, and you're unified. And they need you. The tomb has to be finished. It's behind schedule already. Skilled stonemasons can't be easily replaced. It takes years to train someone to carve hieroglyphics properly. If they kill all of you, who builds the tomb? You have leverage. For the first time in your life, you have actual leverage. Finally, after days of standoff, after the officials realize you're serious, after messages go up the chain to higher authorities, the rations arrive, full rations, complete distribution, and back pay. The rations you missed, they're included. You won. Workers at the bottom of the social pyramid refuse to work and force the government to give in. This doesn't happen often. This strike is so unusual, so unprecedented, that it gets recorded on papyrus. The scribes write it down because it's noteworthy. Worker rebellions aren't supposed to succeed, but this one did. You return to work. The strike is over, but something has changed. Something subtle but important. You know now that you're not completely powerless. You're necessary. And necessary means you have negotiating power. Even in an autocratic society with a god king. Of course, if you try this too often, they'll figure out how to replace you or simply decide that mass execution is cheaper than continued concessions. Power is always temporary and conditional. But for now, for this moment, you won. You and your fellow workers stood together, unified by hunger and desperation. And you got what you needed. It's the ancient Egyptian version of a union victory. Except there's no union. No formal organization. No labor loss. Just hunger and solidarity and the realization that together, you're stronger than you are alone. You eat your rations that night and they taste like something more than bread. They taste like dignity, like agency, like maybe, just maybe, you're not just a tool for moving stones. You're a person, and people have power when they act together. If you think being a male Egyptian worker is hard, imagine doing it while female. Your wife wakes up before you every single morning. Before the rooster, before dawn, before anyone, she rekindles the fire from last night's embers, grinds grain for breakfast, makes the porridge, and hasn't even started her actual workday yet. Women in worker families don't get rations directly. You do. You're the worker. Your rations are supposed to feed your whole family. Your wife's existence, her survival, depends entirely on you sharing your food with her. If you die, she has to remarry quickly or she and the kids starve. That's it. That's her safety net. Find another husband fast. Her workday looks like this. Grinding grain into flour. This takes 3 to 4 hours every single day. She kneels in front of a grinding stone. A large flat stone with a smaller stone roller. She pushes the roller back and forth, crushing grain into flour, back and forth, for hours. It destroys her knees. Her wrists develop chronic pain. Her back aches from leaning forward. But the family needs flour for bread. So she grinds. Baking bread. Another 2 to 3 hours. Mixing the flour with water. Kneading it. Shaping it. Baking it in a clay oven that regularly burns her hands and arms. The oven is hot. Obviously, it has to be. She reaches in to place dough and pull out finished loaves. Burns are constant. Weaving cloth. Making your family's clothes from raw flax fibers. It's tedious. Detailed work. It takes weeks to produce a single garment. Her fingers bleed from the rough fibers. Her eyes strain from focusing on tiny threads. But everyone needs clothes. So she weaves, carrying water, multiple trips per day to the Nile or the village well. Each trip, she carries a heavy clay jar balanced on her head or hip. The jar, when full, weighs maybe 30 pounds. She makes this trip 3, 4, 5 times a day. Her neck and shoulders are permanently damaged. But the family needs water. So she carries. Caring for children. Feeding them. Washing them when water can be spared. Teaching them basic tasks as soon as they're old enough to help. There's no daycare. No school for worker kids. She's with them constantly while also doing everything else. So when people say women didn't work in ancient Egypt, that's complete nonsense. They worked constantly, endlessly. They just didn't get paid for it. Their labor was invisible, unpaid, and absolutely essential. If she's lucky and skilled, she might have something extra that earns a little on the side. Maybe she's a midwife, helping other women give birth. This is dangerous work. Many women die in childbirth. Many babies die, but it pays in food or goods. Maybe she's an exceptionally good weaver and nobles commission cloth from her. Maybe she brews extra beer to sell. But most of the time, she's just surviving. Doing invisible labor that keeps the family alive while you get credit for being the worker. The provider? She can't own property easily. If she's widowed, she might inherit your house. But she can't buy land. Can't control wealth. She's legally a dependent. An extension of you. Not a full person under the law. If you beat her, that's legal. Husbands are expected to discipline wives and children. If she dies in childbirth, which is terrifyingly common, you'll remarry within months because you need someone to grind grain and care for kids. And yet, without her, you'd starve. The household would collapse. Children wouldn't survive. The entire structure of worker life depends on women's unpaid labor. Women are the foundation under the foundation. The invisible labor that makes all other labor possible. So yeah, being a male Egyptian worker is brutal. Being a female Egyptian worker is all of that plus complete legal invisibility and the constant threat of death by childbirth. So how do you survive this? How does anyone endure this level of constant hardship? Community. That's how. Your neighbors aren't just people who live nearby. They're survival partners. When your family runs out of food 3 days before ration distribution, your neighbor shares half a loaf of bread. When his wife is sick, your wife helps care for his kids and makes his meals. It's not charity. It's insurance. It's investment in mutual survival. Today, you need help. Tomorrow, they might need help. Everyone helps everyone because everyone needs help eventually. You gather in the evenings when work is finally done. Sitting outside in whatever cool air the night brings. The temperature drops from 105 to maybe 85. It's almost pleasant. Talking, joking, complaining about overseers and rations and work, sharing stories, gossiping about who said what to whom. The kids play together in the street. Your daughter and the neighbor's son are friends. They've known each other since birth. Maybe they'll marry someday. That's how it works in worker villages. Everyone marries someone local because there's literally no one else. The world is 70 houses and 400 people. That's it. When there's a wedding, the whole village contributes. Some families bring food. Some bring beer. Some provide music, playing drums and flutes. Some help build additions to houses for newlyweds. It's a communal effort because no single family can afford a wedding alone. When someone dies, everyone mourns together. Everyone helps dig the grave. Everyone contributes to the burial. Everyone shares the grief because death is constant, and if you didn't mourn together, you'd be mourning alone all the time. This tight-knit community is both comfort and prison. You're never alone, but you're also never alone. There's no privacy, no escape, no secrets. Everyone knows everything about everyone. Your business is everyone's business, but it's what keeps you human. The jokes that make you laugh despite everything. The gossip that makes life interesting. The shared suffering that reminds you you're not enduring this alone. The knowledge that when you fall, someone will help you up because next time it might be them falling. You're all at the bottom of the pyramid together. You're all trapped in the same structure. You're all struggling with the same impossible circumstances. And somehow, that makes it bearable. Not good, not happy, but bearable, which is sometimes the most you can hope for. So, you've spent a day as an ancient Egyptian worker. You woke up in a mud brick house shared with your entire family and a goat. You ate porridge that tasted like paste. You used sand as toilet paper. You walked barefoot over rocky terrain to a construction site in the desert. You hauled 2-ton blocks of limestone up wooden ramps in 105-degree heat. You worked 12 hours straight with one 30-minute break. You breathed dust that's slowly destroying your lungs. You got paid in bread and beer. You drank beer because the water will give you parasites. You hurt constantly because pain is just part of being alive. You can't quit your job because quitting isn't legally an option. You can't change careers because your career is your birthright and your prison. And tomorrow, same thing. And the day after that. And the day after that. For your entire life, for your kids' entire lives. For their kids' entire lives, generation after generation after generation. Doing the same work. Eating the same food. Living the same predetermined existence. You wouldn't last a day. Honestly, neither would I. Neither would most modern humans. Not because we're weak. Not because we're lazy or spoiled or soft. But because their normal was our nightmare. Because what they endured as daily reality would break most of us within hours. The heat alone would send us running for air conditioning that doesn't exist. The food would have us ordering delivery that isn't invented yet. The work would make us quit a job we legally cannot quit. The lack of freedom. The rigid social structure, the constant pain and hunger and danger, all of it would overwhelm us immediately. We're soft by comparison. And you know what? That's okay. That's actually wonderful. That's progress. But here's what's worth remembering. They survived. Millions of people, generation after generation, lived this life. They didn't just survive. They built civilization. They created art that still moves us 3,000 years later. They developed medicine, mathematics, engineering. They fell in love. They raised families. They told jokes. They found meaning in a world designed to crush them. They weren't superhuman. They were just human. Same as us. Same hopes. Same fears. Same capacity for joy and suffering. But adapted to a reality we can barely comprehend. And they deserve to be remembered. Not just as anonymous workers who built pyramids for dead kings, but as people with names we don't know, lives we'll never fully understand, struggles that make our worst days look like vacation. The pyramids still stand. Massive. Impressive. Eternal monuments to human achievement. But they were built on bones, on broken backs, on endless labor, on the lives of invisible people who hauled every single stone, carved every single hieroglyphic, mixed every single batch of mortar. Tonight, we've made them a little less invisible. Before you drift off to sleep, feeling grateful for your memory foam mattress and your climate-controlled bedroom, let's talk about what hasn't changed. Social hierarchies still exist. We don't have pharaohs anymore. Not in name. But we have billionaires. We don't have royal tombs being built by forced labor. But we have mega yachts and private islands and luxury bunkers built by people earning minimum wage. Workers still do back-breaking labor. Maybe not hauling limestone blocks by hand, but standing on concrete warehouse floors for 12-hour shifts with minimal breaks, picking crops in 100-degree fields, working construction jobs that destroy bodies by age 40. The details have changed. The destruction hasn't. People are still somewhat trapped by birth, not as rigidly as ancient Egypt. Obviously, we have more social mobility than they did. But if you're born poor in America, you're statistically likely to die poor. If you're born rich, you'll probably stay rich. The pyramid structure is still there. We just pretend harder that it's not. We still have a version of rations. Minimum wage is often barely enough to survive on. Many workers today are one paycheck away from homelessness. Just like Egyptian workers were one bad harvest away from starvation. The anxiety is the same. The precariousness is similar. We even have strikes. Amazon warehouse workers walking out over conditions and pay. Starbucks employees organizing for better treatment. Teachers, nurses, transit workers, all realizing that collective action still works. Just like Deir el-Medina in 1152 BCE. Workers today are learning that refusing to work gives them power. The structure persists. The names change. The technology improves. But the fundamental dynamic of some people at the top benefiting from other people's labor at the bottom, that's ancient. That's older than the pyramids. Now, I'm not saying modern America is as bad as ancient Egypt. It's not. Not even close. We have medicine that actually works. We have labor laws and safety regulations. We have weekends. We have the legal right to quit jobs we hate. We have at least the possibility of change, even if change comes slowly. But we still have people doing invisible, essential work. We still have workers whose bodies break down from repetitive labor. We still have people trapped in jobs they hate because they need health insurance or because they have families to feed. We still have inequality built into the structure. The Egyptian workers teach us something important. This isn't new. Exploitation is old. Rigid hierarchies are ancient. The powerful benefiting from the powerless. That's been happening for at least 5,000 years. But resistance is old too. Community is ancient. Solidarity works. People finding dignity in impossible circumstances. That's as old as civilization itself. The Egyptian workers endured for 3,000 years. Their system eventually changed, collapsed, was replaced. Nothing lasts forever, no matter how permanent it seems. Ours can change too. But that's a thought for tomorrow. Tonight, just rest. So tonight, as you settle into your bed, your actual bed with an actual mattress and pillows and clean sheets, take a moment. You have clean water. Turn on the tap and it flows. No parasites. No worms. No bacteria. No 20-minute walk to the river. No heavy jar to carry. Just clean. Safe water whenever you want it. You have food. Maybe not gourmet food. Maybe not exactly what you want, but variety. Choice. A refrigerator with options. You're not eating the same grain paste every single day for 40 years. You have medicine. Headache, take ibuprofen, and it's gone in 20 minutes. Infection, antibiotics. Broken bone hospital, with x-rays and proper casts. You don't have to hope some guy with a bronze knife and questionable training can help you. You have freedom. Don't like your job, you can quit. Want to learn a new skill? Take a class. Want to move to a different city? Pack your bags. You're not legally bound to your birth position for life. You have rest. It's nighttime right now. You're going to sleep. For 7, 8, maybe 9 hours. In a comfortable bed, in a climate-controlled room. No roosters at dawn. No goats in your bedroom. No baby crying through thin walls. Just sleep. This isn't the life of a pharaoh. But compared to an Egyptian worker, compared to the people at the bottom of that ancient pyramid, you're living in unimaginable luxury. They would look at your life, even your struggles and your problems, as something beyond their wildest dreams. So yeah, be grateful. For indoor plumbing, for weekends, for the fact that your boss can't legally beat you with a stick, for pain medication, for clean water, for the right to quit, for all of it. Be grateful that you live now and not then. But also remember something. Someone's labor built the world you're comfortable in. Someone assembled your phone. Someone sewed your clothes. Someone grew your food. Someone delivered it to your door. They may not be building pyramids, but they're building your comfort. Don't forget them. Don't make them invisible the way history made Egyptian workers invisible. That's all. That's the lesson. It's late now. Or early, depending on where you are in the world. You've traveled 3,200 years back in time tonight. You've walked in ancient sandals, or no sandals at all. You've felt the sun on your back, the dust in your lungs, the weight of stones, and the weight of a system that never changes. But you're back now, in your time, in your place, safe and comfortable. The Egyptian workers are resting too. They've been resting for millennia. In the ground, scattered across the desert. In unmarked graves and elaborate tombs. In the sand and stone of the land they built, their bones have long since turned to dust. But tonight, we remembered them. We spoke their names. The ones we've imagined for them. Since their real names were lost. Amenhotep and Kheti, and Nefret and Seneb. All the unnamed millions. They worked, they suffered, they endured. They found moments of joy despite everything. They raised families and told stories, and laughed and cried and lived. And now they sleep. They've been asleep for 3,000 years. And you can sleep too. Let go of the heat. Let the desert sun fade from your memory. Let go of the weight of the stones. Let go of the rigid pyramid structure. Let go of the hunger and the pain and the endless grinding routine. Tomorrow you'll wake up to running water and coffee and a job you can quit if you really want to. Tomorrow you'll have choices. Tomorrow you'll have freedom that Egyptian workers couldn't even imagine. But tonight, just rest. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this journey through history that your textbook skipped. Thank you for caring about people whose names were never written down, but whose labor built wonders. If you enjoyed this deep dive into boring history, if it helped you relax or think or drift towards sleep, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more content like this. More history told slowly, calmly, with respect for the people who lived it. And leave a comment telling me where you're from. I love knowing that people all over the world are learning about ancient Egypt at 3 in the morning or lunchtime or whenever you happen to be listening. Sweet dreams. And maybe, just maybe, dream of pyramids rising from the desert. But remember, you didn't build them. They did. The workers, the invisible millions. The ancient Egyptians believed that every night the sun god Ra journeyed through the underworld, through 12 hours of darkness filled with demons and challenges, before being reborn at dawn. Every sunset was a death. Every sunrise was resurrection. A cycle. Eternal. Unchanging. You've journeyed through the underworld of history tonight. Through darkness and difficulty. Through suffering that's hard to witness even from 32 centuries away. Through lives that were grinding and painful and often short. But now, it's time for your sunrise. Time for rebirth. Time for rest and sleep and peace. The workers are at rest. They've earned it. After lifetimes of labor, after generations of carrying the weight of civilization on their backs, they're finally at rest. You can rest too. Let yourself drift. Let your mind wander. Let the images of ancient Egypt fade like morning mist under the desert sun. Good night. Sleep well. And remember this. The pyramids are beautiful. Magnificent monuments that still inspire awe. But someone paid the price for that beauty. Someone hauled every stone. Someone carved every wall. Someone lived and died so that 3,000 years later, tourists could take photos and marvel. Tonight, we honored those someones. We said they mattered. We remembered that behind every great monument stands an army of forgotten people. The invisible builders, the unnamed laborers, the foundation that held everything else up. They're visible now. At least for tonight. At least in our minds and hearts. Rest now. They're resting. You can rest too. The pyramid stands. But you don't have to carry it. Sleep.